tonight. The NFL and the First Amendment. Alabama's Trump referendum.
If Luther doesn't win, they're going to say Donald Trump was unable to pull his candidate.
And preaching solar. Late on Monday afternoon, Republican Senator Susan Collins announced she'd vote against the Graham-Cassidy bill, likely sinking the GOP's latest Obamacare replacement effort for the time being. Collins made her announcement just after the Congressional Budget Office reported that, quote, millions of Americans would lose their coverage under Graham-Cassidy. Senators held their first and only hearing on the bill today, but raucous protests derailed it several times. Puerto Rico's governor is warning of a humanitarian crisis and asking for more federal help after Hurricane Maria devastated the island, which is home to 3.4 million Americans. Food and water are running low, the entire electrical grid is down, and cell and internet access are severely limited. A dam in the island's northwest has suffered critical infrastructure failure, and thousands have been told to evacuate. The Supreme Court has canceled arguments on President Trump's travel ban that were scheduled for next month, after the White House issued new and expanded restrictions last night. Starting next month, the new policy will indefinitely bar people from 7 countries, many of which were part of the original ban, but now adds North Korea and Chad. Sudan was removed from the list. Former New York Congressman Anthony Weiner was sentenced to 21 months in federal prison today for sexting a 15-year-old girl. Weiner, who's repeatedly been caught trading explicit messages and pictures, pled guilty in May to 1 count of transferring obscene material to a minor. In his letter to the judge, Weiner said he has profound regret for his crime. He's set to begin his sentence on November 6th. The first female Marine graduated today from the famously difficult infantry officer course. The Corps released video of the lieutenant training, but she's asked to keep her identity private. The Marines opened the grueling 13-week course to women last year. On average, about 25% of entrants wash out, regardless of sex. Before today, more than 30 women had tried and failed to complete the course. The new graduate will now be the first woman to lead a Marine infantry platoon.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
It just amazes me with everything else that's going on in this world, especially involving the U.S. That's what you're concerned about, my man.
The battle over free speech in the NFL may be new. It may involve millionaire athletes who can speak directly to their fans, but it has direct ties to the fight waged by a coalition of UC Berkeley students from across the political spectrum known as the Free Speech Movement. The FSM started in the fall of 1964 after the Berkeley administration banned all political activity on campus. The FSM's goal was a complete repeal of the ban, but the energy that drove the movement came from deeper grievances. Students were fed up with a university that treated education like an industry.
What the railroads did for the second half of the last century and the automobile for the first half of this century may be done for the second half of this century by the knowledge industry, and that is to serve as the focal point for national growth.
So when Berkeley handed down its ban on political activity, it inadvertently galvanized thousands of frustrated students into active rebellion.
They stepped on everyone's toes at the same time. They didn't ban civil rights organizations. They banned all activities by student political organizations.
The fight started over some small tables on a sidewalk where students would raise money for political causes they supported.
The university's function is the encouragement and the dissemination of ideas. And these silly little card tables, for me, was part of my education. I had a right to that, just as I had a right to go to class.
When a former student was arrested for setting up one of these tables, a 32-hour standoff ensued, students surrounding the police car to prevent it from leaving. It wasn't just liberals that came out in support. The movement brought together everyone from the campus Republicans and Students for Goldwater to the Socialist Party and Women for Peace.
It was a very broad movement. It had lots of people. The bulk of the most active were of one strain of left or another. But the most impressive thing about the free speech movement, and I had the inside view, I was at every meeting, everyone understood that the key to our strength was our unity and worked really hard to maintain that.
Months of protests and failed negotiations culminated in a massive sit-in at Sproul Hall, where the FSM's leader, Mario Savio, gave an iconic speech about halting the gears of President Kerr's so-called knowledge factory.
I ask you to consider, if this is a firm, and if the Board of Regents are the Board of Directors, and if President Kerr in fact is the manager, and I tell you something, the faculty are a bunch of employees, and we're the raw materials, but we're a bunch of raw materials that don't mean to end up being bought by some clients of the university, be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings.
800 students were arrested at Sproul. The action eventually forced the administration to repeal its ban on political activity. And that success inspired a massive wave of protests and campus takeovers at schools across the country. Today, NFL players are fighting for the same things the FSM did: the right to protest and the right to keep both their professional identities and their personal beliefs in the face of those who would deny them one or the other.
I think what the president is saying is that the owner should have a rule that players should have to stand in respect for the national anthem. They can do free speech on their own time.
We felt like President Trump's speech was an assault, on our most cherished right, freedom of speech. And collectively, we felt like we had to, do something for this game.
Tomorrow, Alabama plays host to the latest battle in the Republican Civil War. Holding its primary election for U.S. Senate, the incumbent Luther Strange is running against notorious hardliner Roy Moore. But in this contest between the GOP establishment and President Trump's grassroots base, Trump himself is siding with the establishment.
Now it's my great honor and privilege to introduce not only the President of the great United States of America, but a friend of mine. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Luther Strange is a mainstream Republican and a loyal yes vote, which Trump needs.
I said, I got to get your vote on health care. He says, you've got it. I've always been for you. My family's always been for you. And honestly, Mr. President, if you want my vote, you have it. That's the coolest thing that's happened to me in 6 months, okay? It's true. So Luther did that for me. And I remembered Luther. We have to be loyal in life,
That's probably not true of Strange's primary opponent, Roy Moore, who's known as a bit of a loose cannon. The former state chief justice was removed from office twice for putting religion before the law. He's the Republican who refused to remove a Ten Commandments monument and plaque from the Alabama Supreme Court building. He's also prone to controversial comments about sexuality and race.
Our foundation has been shaken. Crime, corruption, immorality, abortion, sodomy, sexual perversion sweep our land.
Moore is leading Strange in every public poll of the race, and some of Trump's best-known staffers have endorsed him, including former White House aides Steve Bannon and Sebastian Gorka.
Tuesday, you must send a signal to the swamp dwellers in D.C. because on November the 8th, we put a man into office who believes in God, family, country. That's the same as Judge Roy Moore.
Even Sarah Palin showed up for Moore in Alabama.
Judge Moore is going to defend our interests with the same still spine that he defended those 10 Commandments. And by the way, I don't think there's any cooler nickname you you could have than the 10 Commandment judge. That's a badge of honor.
Trump didn't have to get involved. A Republican will probably win the race either way. But since he endorsed Strange, the race is now about the president's power. He knows he may come out on the losing end.
I might have made a mistake. Because, here's a story. If Luther doesn't win, they're going to say Donald Trump was unable to pull his candidate across the line. This is total embarrassment.
Strange was appointed by the state's disgraced former governor, who resigned because of a sex scandal. A Mitch McConnell-linked super PAC spent $5 million supporting the candidate. Those establishment ties seem to make him antithetical to everything Trump ran on, and it's making some Alabama Republicans uneasy, including some of Trump's closest supporters. State Representative Ed Henry was Trump's Alabama campaign co-chairman. You talked about this potentially affecting Donald Trump's base. I mean, are you hearing that from people?
Oh, yes. There are a ton of regular Alabamians that are in disbelief that the man that they put so much faith in, Donald Trump, could ever put his arm around a snake like Luther Strange.
But counter to the conventional wisdom in D.C., most of the Trump voters backing Moore in Alabama don't see the race as a referendum on the president. Here's how Palin explained it.
A vote for Judge Moore isn't a vote against the president. It is a vote for the people's agenda that elected the president.
Trump's grassroots supporters found ways to excuse him.
Donald Trump's already set the tone as far as getting rid of bad people. He couldn't endorse anybody else and get any political capital from Mitch McConnell. So I don't begrudge him doing that. That's a business move.
Isn't that a swamp monster move, though?
No. He knows the people of Alabama well enough that we're going to take care of the business on our own. And he's going to do what he has to do, and we'll do what we have to do.
But it may not be the base that the president needs to worry about.
I love you, Alabama!
Even if he's as popular as ever in the Trump heartland, the president may find that his friends in the Senate start getting picked off by emboldened primary challengers like Moore. Congressman Louis Gohmert, an arch-conservative from Texas who endorsed and campaigned for Moore, is all for it. What does that mean for other incumbents, other Republican incumbents, if he does win?
I think if Roy wins, it will provide a great deal of freedom of attitude. Wait a minute. You can buck the system and still get elected.
Sounds like chaos on Capitol Hill, though.
Well, that's what the founders wanted. The founders wanted some chaos, so it wasn't so easy to make laws that change people's lives for the worse.
Brazil has the world's third largest prison population, and it's disproportionately made up of Black inmates. 67% of prisoners are Black, compared to 53% of the country's population. Rafael Braga, a 27-year-old from one of Rio de Janeiro's poorest neighborhoods, says he was sent behind bars for crimes he didn't commit. He's become the face of an ongoing fight against racial injustice. Vice News met up with him when he returned home. Earlier this month, more than a year and a half after he was incarcerated, Rafael Braga walked out of a Rio de Janeiro prison for a second time.
Obrigado vocês todos. Deus abençoe. Obrigado, Deus abençoe vocês todos.
Braga contracted tuberculosis, and a judge ruled he can wait for his appeal hearing under house arrest. His release was a small victory in a case that's captured the country's attention and made Braga a symbol of what many see as an unfair criminal justice system. Braga's troubles began in 2013. That summer, as many as 300,000 people were protesting in Rio against police brutality and corruption. Braga was arrested for carrying bottles of household cleaning products near the protests, which authorities said he could have used to make Molotov cocktails. He was the only person jailed and sentenced to 5 years and 10 months in prison.
Estou satisfeito de estar preso, ganhar 5 anos de cadeia sem ter feito nada.
In October 2015, Braga was let out to serve the remainder of his sentence at home with an ankle bracelet. But only 3 months later, he was arrested again. Police say he was carrying 0.6 grams of marijuana, 9.3 grams of cocaine, and a firecracker, which drug traffickers often use to signal that police are close by. This time, Braga was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months. Braga and his family insisted from the beginning he was innocent.
E sabe o que eles querem? Incriminar meu filho pro resto da vida, porque ele é tipo uma vítima do Estado.
His image is plastered all over Rio, and Braga's supporters have rallied to his cause.
É com muito pesar, é a concretização de um Estado que preza, de fato, por uma propriedade privada ou por uma elite, né?
Marielle Franco is a favela-born councilwoman who says the justice system is biased.
Que infelizmente tem 2 pesos e 2 medidas. A gente acabou de ver o caso do filho da desembargadora que 129 quilos não os deixou preso. Então, que peso é esse, né? Das 9 gramas e dos 129 quilos a partir do teu berço, do teu lugar, da tua origem, da tua cor.
So far, no date has been set for Braga's appeal hearing.
Tamo junto, moleque. Tamo junto. Valeu?
Public health experts say that one of the best ways to curb overdose deaths is by establishing safe injection sites, places where people can use heroin under medical supervision. But of course, not everyone agrees that officially sanctioned drug use is a good thing, and American cities that have pushed for the idea have been shot down. Toronto got farther. In 2016, its city council approved 3 safe injection sites, but by this August, none had opened. So a group of activists decided to open one on their own, even though they had to break the law to do it.
Although Toronto Police doesn't necessarily agree totally with an injection site like this popping up, because we do have the aspect of illegal drugs coming and going, the crisis supersedes that at this point in time.
Yeah, watch your fingers.
Is there another large...
Big sharp fins?
Yeah, there's all the little sharps or whatever. Just to put one in, just like one big one.
The first day we opened, it was like 2 or 3 o'clock, and we started to put everything up, and the police rolled up, radioed in, we have a situation going on in the park, and then they sent in Superintendent Heinz Kucktes, who actually was like pretty nice. We had a spike of overdoses in the city, and it just seemed to be escalating. We can't just hand out naloxone, and we can't just like go to memorials constantly. We've had over 13 overdoses here we've reversed and assisted in, and a few of those have been quite scary. Opiate overdose usually takes some time, but the kind of drugs we have on the street are making people drop. If they're trying to move people through the injection tent, they'll grab you and say, like, keep an eye on this person. So that person is on you, keep them close somewhere with you.
When I heard about the pop-up, I couldn't believe it really at first, so I had to go and see it with my own eyes, and it was for real. Pops up kind of on its own. Without places like this, people are going to continue to die. And this fentanyl, people are getting this stuff laced in their heroin, and they don't know it.
Someone just handed us a bag, and they are suspecting it's fentanyl. It was sold to them as down, so there's some residue in the bag there. We're gonna check that and see what turns up. If it is positive fentanyl, we'll see 1 red line towards the bottom here. If it was negative, we'll see 2 red lines. I do wait 5 minutes, but it's already, to me, it's indicative that there is fentanyl in there.
They're right on the top, right above you.
Been a junkie for 2 years. I live here. This is where I hang out. The park's a lot cleaner. There's people that don't judge you, that volunteer here, addiction counselors, ex-junkies. Most junkies don't have anybody in their life, like family-wise or anything like that. We're all written off, most of us. Eventually I want to stop using. It's a shitty life. Yeah, the life that you want to kill yourself a lot of the time.
I went from doing a pill every couple of days to a $500 a day habit. Before I knew what had happened, I was what I hated so much, a junkie. We're here to let them live another day so that they have the opportunity to stop on their own. Because nobody can stop you until you're ready to stop.
The sun is giving us a message today.
Do you think this is a good omen for your talk tonight?
Very good omen.
Yeah?
Yes, brother sun, sister moon.
Claire Whalen is an 88-year-old Franciscan nun who recently celebrated her 7th decade in the order. We visited her last month in Indiana during the eclipse to talk about solar energy.
You know, the earth, all creation, is a manifestation of the one who created it, the source of all being. Mm-hmm. And that's the source of my being, too.
Recently, Claire has channeled her faith-based environmentalism toward fighting a new policy. In May, Indiana's Republican-led state legislature passed Senate Bill 309, which will make owning solar panels less affordable. In response, Claire joined a statewide drive to get people in Indiana to go solar. And part of the way she's doing this is by hosting community meetings to connect residents in her area with solar panel installers.
These are some of the towns and cities that have already been involved in this. We went to Bloomington for an all-day workshop. 16 teams now throughout the state of Indiana are doing the same thing.
So you're helping out the solar industry in Indiana.
I guess we're more for the homeowner to do this fast because to their benefit. I like to see things get done. I like to see fair treatment. And I happen to have the energy and the skill to push people.
Our electric bill is approximately $1,400 a month. So I'm curious to find what we can save by having solar panels.
It's not too often when you get a combination of something that makes good moral sense, ecological sense, and still saves you money.
There is some urgency to Claire's efforts. In the past 3 years, Maine, Hawaii, and Arizona have all taken steps to restrict solar incentives, making the bill in Indiana part of a national trend. Now that it's passed, it's set to take effect in January, at which point homeowners will see new limits set on something called net metering. Here's how net metering works. Right now, if you're an Indiana homeowner with solar panels on your roof, you get a credit on your electricity bill each month for the excess energy your panels generate. Effectively, you sell it back to the grid at the same price the electric company would charge you. But Bill 309 changes that. It makes it so that if someone were to lose their benefits from net metering today, a solar panel owner would pay the retail price, 12 cents per kilowatt hour, for electricity from the grid. But they'd only be able to sell the electricity back for a price close to wholesale, about 4 cents. Brant Hirschman is a Republican state senator in Indiana. He's the author of SB 309. There are only about 1,000 people in Indiana right now that use solar energy. That's not a lot.
That's correct.
Why go after net metering now?
Well, first of all, I would disagree with your statement, go after net metering.
Sure.
But if you look at the controversy that was generated over this bill, when only 1,000 people are participating, understand how difficult it would be to make any changes to the program when that number is 10,000 or 50,000 or more.
From the perspective of somebody who has solar panels on their roof, they're saying, hey, I'm paying this much for my energy. When I give it back to utilities and they benefit from that, shouldn't I also be credited the same amount that I'm paying for my energy? How would you explain your position to them?
It fails to take into account the additional costs that are incurred, like the distribution and transmission costs. That doesn't come for free.
A lot of the people that I've spoken to about Bill 309 and who are upset about it are people who belong to faith-based groups. And for them, going solar is all about embracing God's creation and taking care of the environment. What would you tell them?
I guess technically speaking, God created coal as well. So you have to take a look at this in totality. I have nothing against solar power, but to suggest that it's God's favorite energy source is a bit of a stretch.
After 3 meetings, Claire has gotten 25 people to signal an interest in solar. Of those, 8 customers have signed a contract with a solar installer. Did you expect to have this many people come to these talks and then decide, yeah, I want to go solar?
I wanted more.
You wanted more. Do you think that you're going to keep talking up solar, in the years to come?
Oh, yes.
You're going to keep being involved?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, as long as I can.
Yeah.
As long as there's air in my system.
That's Vice News Tonight for Monday, September 25th.